Chapter 1. The Silent Hatchling and the Human's Arrival. The barren wasteland of Krilthos 4 sprawled beneath an oppressive sky, a canvas smeared with streaks of crimson and orange as the dying light of the twin suns struggled to pierce the planet's choking dust storms. Cracked earth stretched endlessly in every direction, fractured by ancient seismic upheavals that left jagged rock formations clawing into the sky like the skeletal fingers of some forgotten titan. The wind howled relentlessly, carrying with it the bitter taste of sulfur and the distant echoes of a world long forsaken. This forsaken expanse was the last refuge of a dying species dragons. But not the great soaring beasts of myth and legend. These were the hatchlings, the fragile remnants of a race pushed to the edge of oblivion by centuries of relentless hunting and warfare. Their numbers had dwindled to a handful, hidden among the ruins of ancient nests scattered across the hostile plains, struggling to survive in a universe that had forgotten them. Amid the desolation, a faint but persistent sound punctuated the oppressive silence, a soft, trembling whimper that seemed almost lost to the roar of the wind. Beneath a crumbled slab of scorched stone lay a tiny creature no bigger than a human infant, its body covered in scales that shimmered faintly with iridescent hues of blue and violet, dulled now by the thick layers of dust and grime. Its wings, delicate and translucent like stained glass, twitched weakly as it tried to move, but the true tragedy lay in its eyes. They were clouded, milky white, devoid of any sight. A cruel fate for a creature whose kind relied on sharp vision to navigate the dangerous skies and avoid predators. The hatchling's blind gaze was fixed on nothing, and its small frame trembled with a mixture of pain, fear, and isolation. It was alone, abandoned by fate and forsaken by its kind, left to perish in a world that had no room for the weak. Far beyond the bleak horizon, in a cramped settlement cobbled together from rusted starship hulls and scavenged tech, Kalen wiped grease from his hands and leaned over a cluttered workbench. The air was thick with the scent of burnt circuits and lubricants, mingling with the low hum of malfunctioning generators and the occasional sputter of old engines. Kalen was a human mechanic of no small renown in this sector, a man who had earned his reputation by breathing life into forgotten machines, coaxing functionality from rusted relics, and performing miracles on ships long condemned as lost. His skill was born of desperation and necessity. In the lawless fringes of space where governments held no sway and mercenaries ruled with iron fists, Kalen's hands were a rare beacon of hope. But today, something unusual had pierced through the static cluttering his comm unit. It was a faint signal buried deep beneath layers of cosmic noise, a pattern of pulses almost imperceptible to the untrained ear. Unlike the distress beacons from ships or the emergency calls of stranded miners, this signal carried a peculiar cadence, soft, irregular, but unmistakably alive. It was a cry, not of metal or machinery, but of a living soul. Kalen frowned, his brow furrowing with curiosity and concern. In all his years of wandering the forgotten sectors, he had never encountered a signal like this, something primal, desperate, and filled with a silent plea. The signal's origin was pinpointed to the harsh surface of Krilthos 4, a planet known more for its death traps and dust storms than for any sign of life. Most deemed it a wasteland, a graveyard for lost travelers, but Kalen felt a strange pull, a flicker of empathy that stirred in the depths of his weary heart. Without hesitation, he tossed a few essentials into his worn leather satchel, slung his toolkit over his shoulder, and hopped onto his battered hoverbike. The engines roared to life, sputtering as if awakening from a long slumber, and with a burst of speed, Kalen surged forward into the dusty twilight, his path illuminated only by the flickering glow of distant stars and the dying light of the twin suns. The journey to the source of the signal was fraught with peril. Ion storms erupted without warning, their crackling energy surging through the atmosphere and distorting the landscape into a shifting mirage of shadows and flickers. Jagged asteroid fields drifted dangerously close, remnants of ancient collisions that still haunted the planet's orbit. Kalen's hands gripped the bike's controls with practiced precision, eyes narrowed against the whipping wind and grit that sought to blind him. His mind was sharp, attuned to every vibration and tremor, every flicker of the control panel's sensors. The signal's faint cry grew stronger as he pressed onward, guiding him like a fragile thread of hope through the desolation. Hours passed, and the twin suns finally dipped below the horizon, plunging Krilthos 4 into a chilling night lit only by the cold gleam of distant stars and the occasional flare of storm lightning. The temperature plunged, the biting cold gnawing at exposed skin, but Kalen pushed on, driven by an unspoken promise to the creature he had never seen. Then, amidst a shattered outcrop of basalt and scorched soil, he found it. The hatchling lay crumpled beneath a pile of rubble, its fragile chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. Kalen crouched down slowly, careful not to startle the creature, and reached out with a tentative hand. The hatchling flinched, but did not flee. It was too weak, too broken to escape the cold grip of fate. Its milky eyes met Kalen's gaze, vacant and unseeing, and a pang of sorrow tightened in the mechanic's chest. How could he help a creature that could not see the very world it was born into? He scooped the hatchling into his arms, its small body surprisingly warm against the biting cold. The creature's wings fluttered weakly, and faint, ghostly wisps of light shimmered along its scales, a sign of dormant power, perhaps, or the last remnants of a species whose magic was intertwined with biology itself. Kalen's mind raced, recalling tales of ancient dragonkind and the rare technologies designed to augment senses lost to injury or birth defects. Among his scattered tools and salvaged parts lay a prototype, a vision helmet developed by a long-forgotten Earth corporation, intended to provide enhanced visual input to those with impaired sight. It was experimental, bulky, and imperfect, but it was all Kalen had. Back at his workshop, Kalen carefully cleaned and examined the helmet, its sleek black shell etched with faint luminescent circuits pulsing with dormant energy. The device was designed to interface with the wearer's optic nerves, translating raw sensory data into enhanced visual feed, compensating for blindness or damage. If it could be modified to fit the dragon hatchling, it might give the creature the gift of sight or at least something close to it. The process was delicate and arduous. Kalen worked through the night, calibrating neural sensors and resizing the helmet's interior to fit the hatchling's slender head. The creature remained still, sensing the mechanic's gentle touch and perhaps understanding, on some primal level, that this human was its unlikely savior. When the helmet was finally fitted, glowing softly with blue and green hues, Kalen powered it on. For a moment, nothing happened. The hatchling's opaque eyes remained unseeing, but then, flickers of light danced behind the lenses, images coalescing into shapes and colors, shadows and depth. The hatchling stirred, wings spreading tentatively as new sensations flooded its mind. The once blank canvas of darkness was now alive with vibrant hues, distant stars sparkling with clarity, and the craggy rocks no longer blurred ghosts but solid, navigable forms. The creature's cries shifted from fearful whimpers to startled, almost joyous chirps, as it tested its newfound vision. Outside, the stars watched silently, indifferent witnesses to this fragile miracle born in the heart of a dying world. But far beyond the serene moment, something else stirred in the depths of space. 3 hours from the first cry of hope, a shadow fleet of unimaginable scale darkened the galaxy's edge. 2,300 black ships, sleek and ominous, engines humming with lethal intent, raced through the void heading directly toward Krilthos 4. The hatchling's first tentative steps were unsteady, every movement a trial to master this strange new gift of sight bestowed upon it by an alien human. Kalen watched with a quiet, profound fascination as the creature's head turned sharply, wings twitching as it tried to comprehend the suddenly vibrant world around it. Before, the hatchling had only known darkness, a bleak void filled with uncertainty and fear. Now, the dusty red plains of Krilthos 4 stretched in all directions, the cracked ground dotted with twisted metallic wreckage and the burnt skeletons of once mighty beasts. The sky above blazed with the fading light of the twin suns, their pale fire casting long shadows across the barren landscape. The hatchling's glowing eyes, reflected through the lenses of the helmet, shimmered with the awe and confusion of a newborn child discovering existence anew. Kalen's fingers adjusted the fine calibration dials on the helmet, working carefully to synchronize the device's neural interface with the hatchling's primitive optic nerves. This was no simple task. The helmet was designed for human physiology, intricate wiring and sensors built to work with the familiar structures of Earthborn eyes and brains. The dragon hatchling's sensory system was something far more ancient and alien. Its eyes were not just organs for sight, but conduits for energy, channels that linked to a mystical current that ran through its veins, a gift of nature lost to humans, but deeply ingrained in the dragon lineage. As Kalen worked, he could feel a subtle hum beneath the surface of the hatchling's scales, a heartbeat of latent power waking with every connection made. Suddenly, the hatchling flinched sharply, a sudden surge of sensory input overwhelming its fledgling senses. Its wings flicked wildly, and it let out a sharp cry, a sound laced with confusion and pain. Kalen froze for a moment, unsure if the overload would damage the creature. But then, the hatchling's breathing slowed, its trembling ceased, and slowly its gaze fixed on Kalen himself. Through the helmet's sensors, the mechanic saw the faint spark of recognition, as if the creature understood it was no longer alone in this hostile universe. The scales along its neck glowed faintly with bioluminescent patterns, like an intricate tattoo pulsing in rhythm with its emotions. The workshop, usually cluttered with salvaged ship parts and broken tools, was suddenly alive with a new kind of energy. It was not technology that dominated the air, but the fragile, raw life force of the hatchling. Kalen sat back, exhausted but triumphant, as the creature slowly adjusted to the flood of visual data. It blinked, a slow, deliberate motion, taking in the dim light, the colors, the shapes of the room that had sheltered it from death moments before. For the first time in its brief, tortured existence, the hatchling could see. And beyond sight, it could dream. Outside the thick, reinforced walls of the workshop, the dust storms of Krilthos 4 began to shift, the winds growing restless as if sensing the stirrings of an event long foretold by the stars. The planet, ancient and scarred, held secrets deep beneath its cracked surface, secrets that had drawn countless scavengers, mercenaries, and hunters across the galaxy for centuries. The hatchling, however, was more than just a survivor. It was a beacon, a fragile spark in a universe that had nearly extinguished the flame of its kind. And the moment its vision was restored, the ripple it sent out into the cosmos reached ears and eyes far beyond the desolate plains. Far above the atmosphere, the cold void of space concealed the approach of a fleet unlike any other. Sleek black ships, numbering over 2,300, sliced through the darkness with purpose and deadly precision. Their engines pulsed with ominous blue energy, and their hulls shimmered with advanced stealth fields that rendered them nearly invisible to conventional sensors. These were the Black Armada, merciless enforcers of a powerful conglomerate whose reach extended across star systems, known for ruthlessly capturing or annihilating any threats to their dominion. Their presence in this sector was an anomaly, a warning sign that the balance of power was about to shift dramatically. The flagship, a colossal dreadnought forged in forgotten wars, led the fleet, its command bridge glowing with crimson light. Within, a council of hardened commanders observed the data streams, their expressions grim but determined. The dragon hatchling's signal had been detected, faint but unmistakable, an ancient biological signature augmented by unfamiliar technology. It was the signature of a lost royal line, one believed extinct for millennia, and the helmet worn by the hatchling was a telltale sign that a human mechanic had intervened. This was not merely a child left to die. It was a message, a challenge, and a beacon of hope to those who had been hunting the dragons into oblivion. Back on Krilthos 4, Kalen's senses sharpened as his scanners picked up the approaching fleet, far beyond the planet's atmosphere, but closing fast. A chill ran down his spine as the reality of what he had done settled in. He had not just saved a life. He had triggered a chain reaction that might engulf this forsaken world in a storm of war and fire. Yet, despite the looming threat, he felt an unshakable conviction deep in his bones. The hatchling was more than a creature of flesh and scale. It was a symbol of resilience and rebirth, and if the Black Armada came to claim it, Kalen would be ready. The hatchling, now gaining strength with every passing moment, nestled against Kalen's chest, its eyes flickering with a strange mixture of trust and raw, untamed power. The helmet hummed softly, a bridge between two worlds, one mechanical, one primal. Outside, the first shadows of the Black Armada's fleet began to blot out the stars, their dark silhouettes a grim reminder that in this vast galaxy, salvation often came at the edge of annihilation. But for now, in this quiet, dimly lit workshop on a forgotten planet, a blind dragon hatchling saw the world for the first time, and with it, the promise of a new dawn. The deep silence of Kalen's workshop was punctuated only by the soft whirring of machinery and the gentle, uneven breathing of the hatchling resting against his forearm. The vision helmet, a marvel of human ingenuity and desperation, projected softly glowing light patterns across the dim interior, as if the device itself was alive, bridging the vast gulf between biology and technology. Kalen's hands moved with practiced care, gently adjusting the neural link calibrations, ensuring the hatchling's sensory input was stable and not overwhelming. Every subtle flicker of light that danced across the creature's scaled skin was a testament to the fragile miracle he had wrought. In this unassuming room, filled with the detritus of forgotten ships and faded hopes, the impossible was unfolding, the rebirth of an ancient species thought lost to the annals of time. Outside, the battered landscape of Krilthos force shifted as the first waves of the approaching storm gathered momentum. But this was no ordinary tempest. Far above, in the abyssal black of space, the titanic Black Armada grew nearer, their blackened hulls sleek and merciless, engines pulsing with the lethal promise of war. The scanners on Kalen's workstation blinked incessantly, feeding a steady stream of data about the fleet's approach. 2,300 ships, all converging on this forsaken world with a singular, ruthless objective: reclaim the hatchling or erase it from existence. Kalen's mind raced, thoughts swirling like the dust storms outside. The hatchling was a beacon, a symbol of a long-dead line of dragons whose power and majesty had once ruled entire star systems. But centuries of war, exploitation, and fear had reduced them to nothing more than legends whispered in the darkest corners of the galaxy. To the Black Armada, this creature represented a threatened ancient power that could inspire rebellion, disrupt their control, and unravel their iron grip over countless worlds. And to Kalen, it was hope incarnate, a fragile life worth fighting for. As the first warning blips began to sound from his sensors, Kalen's resolve hardened. There was no turning back. He had breathed life into this hatchling's sight, given it a chance where none had existed before. Whatever came next, he would stand as its guardian, a human mechanic wielding little more than ingenuity and stubborn courage against a fleet that could obliterate planets. The moment stretched taut with tension, a fragile balance between hope and despair. Suddenly, the hatchling stirred, blinking bright eyes now flickering with clarity and perception. It tilted its head, focusing on Kalen's face, and for the first time, a bond was forged not just of necessity, but of mutual recognition and trust. The creature's bioluminescent patterns pulsed softly, a language of light and emotion ancient and profound, reaching out through the darkness. Kalen smiled faintly, feeling an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. This was more than survival. This was destiny. But destiny, Kalen knew, often demanded sacrifice. Chapter 2. Shadows over Krilthos. The dawn over Krilthos 4 was far from gentle. It broke with a chorus of alarms, the harsh siren wailing through the mechanic's workshop and the scattered settlements that dotted the rocky landscape. Outside, the horizon burned with unnatural light, the faint shimmer of countless starship engines breaching the upper atmosphere. The Black Armada had arrived. Kalen hurried, lifting the hatchling carefully into a reinforced carrier he had hastily assembled, designed to shield and sustain fragile life forms. The creature's wings fluttered weakly, its gaze steady and alert, the vision helmet's soft glow a beacon against the gathering darkness. Time was slipping away, every second charged with urgency and peril. The fleet that closed in was not just a force of destruction. It was an army with a singular purpose: to capture the hatchling and snuff out any spark of rebellion it might ignite across the galaxy. Outside the workshop, the first ground forces deployed from orbit, descending in dark dropships that hissed through the turbulent atmosphere like predatory birds. The settlement's inhabitants scrambled for cover, their faces etched with fear and resignation. Kalen's mind flickered to the stories he'd heard, whispered among scavengers and traders the Black Armada's brutal reputation for efficiency, for erasing entire worlds that defied their will. But here, on this forsaken rock, Kalen would not surrender without a fight. He moved swiftly, activating old security turrets salvaged from derelict starships, lining the perimeter with layers of defense that might buy precious minutes. The hatchling chirped softly, as if sensing the growing tension, its body pulsing with latent energy barely contained beneath its scaled skin. The vision helmet interfaced with the hatchling's neural network, enhancing its senses far beyond natural limits, a gift of technology fused with ancient biology. This union, fragile and improbable, was a symbol of the new age where humanity and the lost dragon lineage might yet forge a future. Kalen's calm crackled to life, the distorted voice of a nearby scout warning of the Armada's rapid deployment. They're descending fast. Hundreds of black dropships spreading across the valley. We've got less than 10 minutes. Kalen's jaw tightened. Prepare the hatchling. If we're going down, it won't be alone. The sound of heavy boots echoed closer, and shadows began to creep across the barren terrain. The Black Armada's ground troops moved with ruthless precision, dark armored figures armed with energy rifles and plasma cutters, their helmets reflecting the cold light of the twin suns. But the settlers, bolstered by Kalen's leadership, rallied with makeshift weapons and guerrilla tactics born from years of surviving the harshness of this world. The hatchling stirred in its carrier, the glow of the vision helmet intensifying. Kalen knew the creature's true power was still locked beneath layers of trauma and fear. But with its sight restored, with his help, that power might awaken. It was a gamble, a desperate hope that ancient blood and cutting-edge technology could turn the tide against an overwhelming foe. As the first firefight erupted beneath the swirling dust storms, Kalen steadied himself. The battle for Krilthos 4 had begun, and with it, the fate of the blind dragon hatchling and the fragile new alliance forged beneath the stars hung in the balance. The barren wastes of Krilthos 4 erupted into chaos as the Black Armada's dark dropships tore through the hazy atmosphere, disgorging squads of heavily armored soldiers whose sleek, obsidian-black exosuits shimmered with adaptive camouflage that seemed to devour the dusty light around them. Their movements were clinical, precise predators hunting with cold efficiency for a prize few believed still lived. The hatchling, a tiny but potent relic of an ancient lineage, cradled within the protective embrace of a makeshift carrier. Kalen stood amid the scattered debris of his workshop-turned-fortress, every sense heightened, every breath measured. The weight of the moment pressed down upon him like the relentless heat of the twin suns. Failure was not an option, but the odds were staggering. Around him, the desperate settlers scrambled, their ragtag weapons no match for the advanced energy rifles and plasma grenades wielded by the invaders. Yet their fierce determination was palpable. Kalen barked orders, coordinating defenses with the efficiency born of countless battles fought in the lawless void between stars. He had transformed from a solitary mechanic into a reluctant war leader in a matter of hours, his every decision a gamble that could mean salvation or annihilation. The ancient turrets he'd painstakingly repaired roared to life, lancing bolts of ionized energy toward the descending black forms, carving searing lines of light through the dusk. The hatchling, its scales shimmering faintly with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in sync with the hum of the vision helmet, began to stir more vigorously. Its newfound sight was not just a gift but a catalyst, awakening primal instincts buried deep in its DNA. It unfurled its translucent wings slowly, testing the flow of the alien-enhanced visual data flooding its mind. The once blind creature's senses expanded exponentially beyond sight. It felt vibrations in the air, magnetic pulses beneath the earth, and faint echoes of the cosmic energies that had birthed its kind eons ago. It was a newborn phoenix rising from ashes, fragile yet fiercely alive. Kalen glanced down at the hatchling, the flickering glow of the helmet casting eerie shadows on its delicate form. In that moment, the impossible felt tangible. This small being could shift the tide of an empire. The Black Armada's soldiers advanced with terrifying coordination, deploying automatic drones that hovered like deadly insects, scanning for heat signatures and movement. The settlers responded with bursts of makeshift explosives and suppressing fire, buying time but losing ground. Suddenly, a shrill alarm blared from Kalen's comm unit. A rapid update from the perimeter sensors. Multiple dropships deploying assault squads along the eastern ridge. They're trying to flank us. The voice was tense but steady. Kalen didn't hesitate. Divert turret fire east. All able-bodied defend the ridge. I'm taking the hatchling to the fallback point. Cradling the carrier with the hatchling inside, Kalen sprinted toward a nearby cavern complex he had scouted earlier, a network of tunnels carved by ancient tectonic forces that could serve as a natural fortress. The ground trembled beneath his feet as explosions erupted behind him, flashes of plasma and ion blasts illuminating the swirling dust. The hatchling chirped softly, its body pulsating with energy that seemed to resonate with the turmoil surrounding them. Inside the shadowed cavern, the air was cool and still, a stark contrast to the blistering battle raging above. Kalen set down the carrier gently and activated a secondary power shield he had rigged from scavenged tech, a shimmering barrier that could absorb energy blasts and delay intrusions. The hatchling's glowing eyes scanned the dim space, perceiving every detail with stunning clarity through the helmet's interface. It lifted its head, sensing the gathering threat outside and the fragile sanctuary within. Kalen's mind raced as he prepared for the next phase. The hatchling was growing stronger, its ancient bloodline awakening with each passing moment, but so too was the danger. The Black Armada was relentless, their numbers overwhelming, their purpose unyielding. If they captured the creature, it would mean the extinguishing of hope not only for this forsaken world, but for countless others still shackled under their iron grip. He settled beside the hatchling, his voice low but resolute. You're not just a hatchling. You're the last spark of a legacy that can change the galaxy. They'll come for you, but I won't let them take you without a fight. The creature's wings fluttered in response, the helmet's circuits glowing brighter as if acknowledging the pact. Outside, the cavern's entrance shuddered under the assault of energy weapons and pounding feet. Kalen tightened his grip on a salvaged pulse rifle, every nerve screaming with anticipation. The first Black Armada assault squad was upon them, shadows melting into the cavern mouth, their armored forms casting long, sinister silhouettes. But the hatchling, once blind and broken, now saw the world, and it was ready to claim its place in the stars. The cavern trembled under the relentless assault of the Black Armada's elite forces. Kalen's pulse rifle cracked sharply, sending bursts of searing plasma toward the advancing soldiers who moved with mechanical precision, their adaptive armor absorbing most hits, but faltering under concentrated fire. The sound of heavy boots, energy shields clashing, and distant explosions echoed through the twisting tunnels as the battle drew ever closer. Yet, amidst the chaos, the hatchling remained calm, perched atop a reinforced crate, its luminous eyes glowing brighter through the vision helmet as it absorbed every flicker of light, every subtle movement. With a sudden, almost instinctual surge, the hatchling unfurled its wings fully. A resonant hum filled the air as energy pulsed from its scaled body, the bioluminescent patterns igniting into brilliant strands of light that shimmered against the cavern walls. The helmet's interface translated these bursts into an overwhelming sensory experience, projecting enhanced visual and energy feedback to the creature's mind. It was awakening, not just to sight, but to power, a power that had once made its ancestors rulers of the skies and galaxies. Kalen's eyes widened as a low growl reverberated through the cavern, a sound neither wholly beast nor machine, but something primal and ancient. The hatchling's wings beat in rapid succession, sending arcs of glowing energy rippling through the air, crackling like miniature lightning storms. The first wave of Black Armada soldiers faltered, their armor sizzling as the hatchling's energy burst overwhelmed their shields and disrupted their weapons. Chaos erupted in the dim tunnel as soldiers scrambled to regroup, firing wildly but ineffectively against the shimmering barrier and the hatchling's newfound assault. Seizing the moment, Kalen shouted, rallying the remaining settlers and defenders. Now, Push forward. Drive them back. The settlers surged with makeshift weapons and desperate courage, emboldened by the hatchlings' fierce defense. Blasts of plasma and crude explosives tore through the cavern, the very walls seeming to vibrate with the force of the confrontation. The Black Armada soldiers, trained and disciplined though they were, found themselves unnerved by this unexpected resistance. A blind dragon hatchling, empowered by human technology and ancient blood, was turning the tide. But the battle was far from over. From the deeper shadows of the cavern, a new threat emerged, heavy footsteps and a deep mechanical roar announcing the arrival of an armored war beast, a towering construct of metal and bioengineered sinew, designed to hunt and crush all resistance. The monstrous sentinel advanced, its multi-limbed frame bristling with lethal weaponry, and its glowing red eyes locked onto Kalen and the hatchling with merciless intent. Kalen ducked behind a fallen beam, heart pounding as he prepared to confront this living nightmare. The settlers scattered, their shouts drowned by the war beast's thunderous steps. But the hatchling did not flee. Instead, it spread its wings wide, energy coalescing into a brilliant halo of light as it faced the mechanical giant. The cavern lit with the clash of raw power and cold technology, an epic struggle between past and future, life and destruction. Chapter 3: Awakening the Ancients. The cavern was a maelstrom of light and shadow as the hatchling and the war beast collided. Each beat of the dragon's wings unleashed waves of shimmering energy, while the mechanical colossus countered with devastating blasts and crushing strikes. Sparks flew, rocks shattered, and the very air hummed with the ferocity of their duel. Kalen watched, awestruck and terrified, as the hatchling's power surged beyond anything he had imagined. The vision helmet, still glowing softly, seemed to amplify not just sight, but something deeper in ancient resonance echoing through the hatchling's very soul. Amidst the battle's fury, Kalen's comm crackled urgently. "The fleet has begun orbital bombardment," the voice warned grimly. "Surface reinforcements landing in 15 minutes. You need to hold out if you can." Kalen's jaw clenched. Time was running out. The hatchling was no longer merely a child. It was a symbol, a beacon, a catalyst for something far greater than survival. And if the Black Armada sought to crush that hope, they would face not just a fight for a single life, but a war against the legacy of the ancients themselves. With grim determination, Kalen readied himself to dive deeper into the cavern's network, searching for the hidden sanctuaries whispered in ancient star charts, places where the dragons had once drawn power, and where perhaps the hatchling could fully awaken its dormant might. The battle outside was a storm, but beneath the surface lay the roots of a revolution. And the galaxy would soon learn that even in darkness, a single spark could ignite a blaze. The cavern's twisting tunnels stretched deep beneath Kriltho's IV's cracked surface, winding like veins through the ancient heart of the planet. Kalen moved swiftly, the hatchling securely cradled in the reinforced carrier that hummed softly with protective energy fields. The distant echoes of battle explosions, the staccato fire of energy weapons, the thunderous stomps of the Black Armada's war machines grew fainter as they descended deeper into the labyrinth. Yet beneath the surface, an unsettling stillness awaited, a silence heavy with forgotten secrets and the weight of millennia. Kalen's fingers brushed over the worn star charts etched into the carrier's console maps salvaged from ancient ruins, whispered legends of the dragon clans etched into stardust and stone. His mind raced as he traced the coordinates to a hidden sanctuary said to contain the remnants of the dragon's power, the Ether Nexus. It was a place where the cosmic energies that had once flowed freely through dragonkind converged, a sanctuary where the hatchling could awaken fully and claim its birthright. The hatchling's vision helmet pulsed softly, its glowing circuits interfacing with the creature's ancient neural pathways. Through the helmet, Kalen saw flashes of impossible colors, patterns of light weaving through the hatchling's mind like a cosmic tapestry. The creature's eyes, once clouded with blindness, now shimmered with awareness and burgeoning power. A faint, primal roar escaped its throat, resonating deep in the cavern's hollow walls, a call not just of survival, but of awakening. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled violently. Dust cascaded from the cavern's ceiling, and distant roars echoed through the stone corridor, signs that the battle above was intensifying. Kalen's comm crackled with frantic voices. Reinforcements from the settlers were being overwhelmed, the Black Armada tightening its grip. Tom was slipping away. Pushing deeper, Kalen guided the carrier toward a vast chamber, its walls adorned with ancient glyphs glowing faintly with a blue-green light. This was the Ether Nexus, a relic of a forgotten age where dragons once communed with the very fabric of the universe. The air here was thick with energy, vibrating with an almost tangible hum that seemed to awaken the hatchling's dormant senses. Kalen carefully unlatched the carrier, allowing the hatchling to step forward into the chamber. The creature's glowing eyes scanned the ancient glyphs, wings spreading wide as it absorbed the cascading waves of cosmic energy that permeated the space. The vision helmet's light intensified, fusing technology with mysticism, bridging the vast gulf between the mechanical and the organic. As the hatchling stood amid the swirling energies, a transformation began. Its scales shimmered with renewed brilliance, bioluminescent patterns igniting in radiant hues. The creature's form grew stronger, more majestic, its once fragile wings now powerful enough to stir gusts of wind that echoed through the cavern's depths. The helmet's sensors linked seamlessly with the hatchling's ancient bloodline, unlocking abilities long buried beneath trauma and fear. Outside the Nexus, the distant bombardment intensified, the Black Armada's warships casting ominous shadows across the planet's surface. But within this sacred chamber, the hatchling was becoming something more, an embodiment of the dragon's ancient power and the hope of a new era. Kalen stood silently, watching in awe as the hatchling's transformation reached its crescendo. The once blind creature was no longer a mere survivor, but a force awakening to reclaim its destiny, and the galaxy would soon tremble beneath its wings. As the hatchling's luminous form pulsed with ancient energy, Kalen felt a surge of something primal coursing through the chamber, a power so old and immense that it seemed to ripple through the very fabric of space-time itself. The glyphs etched into the cavern walls glowed brighter, their intricate patterns shifting and flowing as if alive, resonating with the awakening creature. The air thickened with electric charge, and the faint hum grew into a deep, resonant chorus that seemed to sing of forgotten galaxies and cosmic battles long past. The hatchling's vision helmet projected streams of data and energy feedback, merging technology and ancient magic into a symphony of light and power. Suddenly, a shudder ran through the Nexus, a warning. Outside, the distant explosions and mechanical roars intensified. The Black Armada's war beasts had breached the upper tunnels, their relentless advance threatening to overrun the sanctuary. Kalen's grip tightened on his pulse rifle, eyes darting toward the narrow passages that led back to the surface. The time to hide was over. The hatchling opened its glowing eyes wide, wings unfurling with majestic grace. It stepped forward, its voice a low, thunderous roar that echoed throughout the cavern. Energy surged from its body in shimmering waves, scattering the ancient glyph's light in brilliant flashes. Kalen realized with a start, the creature was channeling the Nexus's power, weaving it into a force that defied comprehension. This was no longer just a hatchling. It was the living embodiment of an ancient legacy, a catalyst of cosmic renewal. Chapter 4. The Arrival of the Black Armada. Outside Krilthos 4, the sky burned with the fury of 1,000 engines as the Black Armada's vast fleet eclipsed the stars. 2,300 sleek black warships surged toward the planet like a swarm of celestial predators, their dark hulls glistening beneath the cold light of distant suns. The fleet's commanders, draped in crimson and obsidian armor, stood resolute on the bridge of the colossal flagship. They had come not just to capture a single dragon hatchling, but to extinguish a spark that threatened their dominion over the galaxy. As orbital bombardments rained down, reducing the planet's surface to smoldering craters, dropships tore through the atmosphere, deploying wave after wave of elite soldiers. The battle that had begun in the caverns was now mirrored across the scorched plains and shattered settlements. But despite the overwhelming force, resistance burned bright. Settlers, led by Kalen, fought with ferocity born of desperation and hope. Within the heart of the planet, the hatchling's transformation reached its zenith. The vision helmet, now fully integrated with its neural pathways, glowed like a beacon, illuminating the cavern's depths with radiant light. The ancient power surged through its veins, unlocking abilities long dormant, wings that could tear the sky, eyes that pierced the fabric of reality, and a roar that shook the stars themselves. Kalen watched as the hatchling prepared to rise, its energy flaring in anticipation of the coming storm. The fate of Krilthos 4, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hinged on this moment. The blind dragon hatchling, once lost and forsaken, now stood ready to face the might of the Black Armada, a symbol of hope and defiance against an empire of darkness. The air above Krilthos 4 was thick with fire and fury as the Black Armada's relentless assault battered the planet's surface. The once pristine wasteland had become a shattered battlefield, scarred by plasma fire and cratered by orbital bombardments that painted the sky with streaks of orange and crimson. The swarm of black dropships descended like death incarnate, disgorging their deadly payloads with mechanical precision, each squad a well-oiled instrument of war tasked with extinguishing the last flicker of Dragonkind's legacy. But amidst the inferno, the flicker had grown into a blaze, a radiance that no weapon could quench. Kalen stood atop a ruined outcrop overlooking the chaos, his pulse rifle gripped tightly as he watched the defenders rally around the hatchling's call. The creature, no longer the fragile blind infant he had found, now soared on massive, shimmering wings that cut through the smoke like twin comets. Its scales glowed with an otherworldly brilliance, an iridescent armor forged from the fusion of ancient dragon magic and the cutting-edge technology of the Vision helmet. Every beat of its wings sent gusts that scattered the Black Armada's formations, disrupting their advance and filling their ranks with chaos and fear. Below, the settlers fought with desperate courage, their improvised weapons clashing against the superior firepower of the invaders. Yet, inspired by the hatchling's awakening, they pressed forward with renewed vigor, their cries echoing through the war-torn canyons. Kalen's voice rang out, steady and commanding, as he coordinated the defense with unyielding resolve. Hold the line. Protect the hatchling. We fight not just for survival, but for the future. The hatchling let out a thunderous roar that rippled across the battlefield, a sound that seemed to warp the very air. Energy surged from its form in radiant waves, manifesting as crackling arcs of lightning and swirling gusts of cosmic wind that tore through the enemy ranks. The Vision helmet's interface projected streams of tactical data into Kalen's augmented vision, allowing him to anticipate enemy movements and coordinate strikes with uncanny precision. The fusion of ancient power and human ingenuity had created a force unlike any the galaxy had seen. From orbit, the flagship of the Black Armada pulsed with crimson light as its commanders watched the unfolding battle with cold calculation. They recognized the hatchling's power and the humans' resourcefulness, but they had never encountered such defiance. Orders crackled through the fleet, signaling the deployment of the Armada's most feared weaponry, massive energy cannons capable of planetary annihilation and bioengineered war beasts unleashed to crush resistance at all costs. As the ground trembled with the approach of these horrors, Kalen prepared for the final stand. The hatchling descended from the skies, landing amidst the thick of the battle with earth-shaking force. It spread its radiant wings wide, a beacon of hope and wrath, challenging the Armada's might head-on. Together, man and dragon stood united, one born of flesh and fire, the other of steel and spirit, ready to ignite a rebellion that would echo across the stars. The battle for Krilthos 4 was no longer just a fight for a hatchling's life. It was a war for the soul of the galaxy. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning metal and scorched earth as the Black Armada's monstrous war beasts advanced relentlessly across the shattered plains of Krilthos 4. Their colossal forms, a fusion of biomechanical terror, stomped through the debris, each step shaking the ground and sending clouds of dust into the fiery sky. But the hatchling, now fully awakened, soared above them like a blazing comet, its radiant wings cutting through the smoke and chaos with majestic grace. The Vision helmet's glow pulsed in harmony with the creature's every movement, amplifying its senses and channeling the ancient cosmic energies that surged through its veins. Kalen, standing at the forefront of the settlers' resistance, felt an unshakable surge of hope swell within him. The creature's roar, a thunderous and soul-stirring sound, rippled across the battlefield, disrupting enemy formations and rallying the defenders. Energy arcs burst from the hatchling's claws, striking down the mechanical monstrosities with searing precision, while gusts of cosmic wind toppled squads of armored soldiers, scattering them like leaves in a tempest. The settlers, fueled by the sight of this legendary force, fought with renewed vigor, their makeshift weapons and desperate courage a formidable shield against the onslaught. From the flagship orbiting above, the Black Armada's commanders watched in stunned disbelief. The hatchlings' power was beyond their worst fears, a living weapon of myth and technology intertwined, defying the might of their entire fleet. Commands were issued with urgency: deploy the orbital annihilators. Massive beams of concentrated energy tore through the atmosphere, striking the planet's surface with cataclysmic force. Craters blossomed where once stood the fragile hopes of resistance. Yet the hatchling and its human guardian endured, their bond a beacon of defiance. Kalen moved through the battlefield with calculated precision, coordinating the defenders and shielding the hatchling from the deadliest threats. The Vision helmet fed him real-time data, allowing him to anticipate enemy movements and orchestrate counterattacks that turned the tide against overwhelming odds. Each moment was a dance on the razor's edge between survival and destruction. As the battle reached its zenith, the hatchling unleashed its full might, channeling the Nexus's cosmic energy in a blinding explosion of light and power that swept across the battlefield, disintegrating the Black Armada's forces in a radiant wave. The survivors fled, their morale shattered by the indomitable spirit of the last dragon and the human who refused to let darkness prevail. Krilthos IV's sky cleared, stars shining once more over a scarred but free world. Kalen and the hatchling stood amid the ruins, their bond forged in fire and hope, a promise that the legacy of the dragons would live on, and that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, light would always find a way. As the last embers of the Black Armada's retreat faded into the void, silence settled over the battered plains of Krilthos IV, a silence heavy with the weight of survival and the promise of renewal. The twin suns, battered but unbroken, cast a soft golden glow over the scars of battle, illuminating a world forever changed by a single act of hope and defiance. Kalen stood at the edge of the ruined battlefield, the Vision helmet now dim but still nestled on the hatchling's sleek head. The creature, no longer fragile or blind, stretched its magnificent wings, shimmering with iridescent light that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the very cosmos. The hatchling's eyes met Kalen's with a depth of understanding far beyond any human language. In that gaze was gratitude, trust, and a silent vow, a vow that the legacy of its ancestors, the dragons who once ruled stars and galaxies, would not end here. Together, they had defied the impossible, standing alone against an empire of darkness and emerging victorious. But more than victory, they had ignited a spark, a beacon for the countless forgotten, the oppressed, and the lost across the universe who yearned for freedom. Far above, the stars shone with renewed brilliance, their ancient light whispering tales of a new dawn. Word of the hatchling's survival and power would ripple through the galaxy like wildfire, inspiring rebellions, alliances, and a reckoning long overdue. The Black Armada would never forget the day a blind dragon hatchling gained sight, and a human mechanic dared to rewrite fate. Kalen turned to the hatchling, a faint smile breaking across his worn face. "This is just the beginning," he murmured. "There's a whole galaxy waiting to see what you can do." With a powerful beat of its glowing wings, the hatchling lifted into the sky, soaring above the broken world and into the stars beyond. The horizon ahead was vast and uncertain, but for the first time in millennia, the future was theirs to shape, a future where hope, courage, and unity could conquer even the darkest shadows. And so, from the ashes of desolation, rose a legend, a story whispered across the cosmos, of a blind dragon who saw beyond sight, and a human who believed in miracles. The galaxy would never be the same again,